Hello, everybody. I don't think I turned my mic on. I did turn my mic on. Okay. I was getting some weird feedback there for a second. Are you ready to rumble? I had to liven things up. I looked at my stream from last week and I just looked dead. Guys, it's Monday night. And I have a very long day on Mondays with all of life. And yeah, so I'm going to try to I'm also going to try to shorten this. So I've been posting them to YouTube. Excuse me. I've been posting these to YouTube, and YouTube doesn't really like long stuff. At least long, boring stuff. So, I am going over Real Steel, in case you couldn't tell from the poster. I'm going over Real Steel tonight. So, the first couple of times I have streamed, I have been covering things that I thought were excellent, things that we could learn from. We covered Home Alone. It taught us a lot about editing and editing a script down, which, fun fact, let me see if I can find this real quick. I'm wondering if I could do this quickly. I bet I couldn't. I'm not going to do it quickly. Came across on Instagram. I was mentioning in that stream that they had slimmed down Uncle Frank's role to this kind of cheapskate thing, and it really worked, because without that, it's it was messy and weird in the script. He was being weird, all that stuff. So, found the other day, Instagram popped up, because our phones listen to us, that they actually shot those scenes. So the scene where he pants whatever, Kevin, it was actually shot. There's footage, and it was on Instagram. So, as far as that editing thing goes, apparently that was not found in the script. It was found in editing, like actual film editing. So, thought that was a fun fact, fun throwback from a previous stream. But anyway, we covered that one for editing. We covered Rocky for these amazing character arcs, and just a really solid theme. And then I got a request from people saying, well, you're covering really good stuff. What about covering a bad script? And I said, I don't know what to cover, because if they're bad, sometimes they're really bad. And I don't know. We had watched this movie recently. I watched it back when it came out. But my son is super into robots, and thought it would be fun. Thought, he'd have fun with it. And he did. He really likes this movie. And anytime I mention that it's not like the best, he gets kind of mad at me. So, and I kind of see why. You've got Hugh Jackman, you've got Evangeline Lilly, you've got a kid about his age. My son's 9. So, we watched this movie, and I'm waiting to see if it bothers me as much as it did the first time. And it did. It still bothers me. So this is not a script that, I expected to be crazy bad or anything, but something about it was bugging me. I wanted to read it, wanted to see what was going on. So, let me get rid of this beautiful Hugh Jackman face, and then we can talk about the script. Somewhat unfortunately. So we have a draft I found, downloaded it from Scribed, found from 2009. So here's a bit of a peek into this. I happen to know someone who helped a local little actor boy audition for this. He would not have done that until, because I didn't meet the guy until later. Maybe 2010, something like that. So I don't think this has, we've talked about previously, where you have revision something that you can refer to, like a blue script or something like that. This does not say what revision it is. It just says, revisions by somebody, current revisions by somebody. The original script was by somebody, so it's been in multiple hands at this point. June 17, 2009, and we just hop right in. So, Tonight, A, like I said, trying to make this shorter. B, I want to try something. So I've also been judging scripts for a film festival. And, you know, typically when you've got coverage, you're covering certain topics and everything so that people get a broad understanding of the screenplay. And because it has a lot of components. So I'm going to use that as a way to kind of zoom through this. I need to get better at being able to point to things directly in the script. I'm not there yet. I'm usually reading these scripts on my phone, and I don't really have a great way to like highlight something, or so when I scroll, I can't find it very easily. So I'll improve on that. But for now, we're going to use the festival outline. So start with an overall impression with a festival outline, and a lot of times we start with kind of an impression of what the story was about. So you kind of write your own logline. And that tells the writer, okay, did they get it or not? Right? So this script, and remember, we're going by script. I'll talk about the movie later, but it's this script, is about a, aging boxer who, this is really hard to do, like off the top of your head, an aging ex-boxer unexpectedly has to spend some time with his son, all while trying to keep his head above water, pay off debts, and try not to be such a lowlife. There you go. Kind of makes it all about Charlie Kenton, our main character. You'll see that on the main page here. And you'll also notice all of the black. Not a bad thing. A lot of great scripts have a lot of black in there. A lot of action and everything. In this case, okay, I can't. I gotta stick to my format. That's the whole point. Overall impression. It's messy. It has a lot of fluff that could go away. The story, especially the world, has some promise, but it needs to decide what it is. Now, let me explain that. And by the way, that's not a great overall impression for what I do on coverage. That's just the spoken thing. So we start with character development. Character development in this, we start with Charlie Kenton. He's unshaven with sun-beaten skin and a worn posture as he chews on a cheap cigar and gulps an energy drink from a can. Let me see if I can fast forward a little bit. Don't care about any of that. Don't care about any of that. This takes a minute. Charlie grabs a water bottle from the fridge and takes a long drink before pouring some on his head and using his hands to smooth his hair back. He uses one stroke of a brush to slick his mane back. He dodges in between the dangling arms, legs, and belts and grabs a dress shirt that hangs. It's a white Oxford shirt with the sleeves cut off and a tie already fixed around its neck. He pushes the shirt... He pulls the shirt with prefixed tie over his head and spins to grab a linen sports coat that matches the slacks he slept in. After pulling on the jacket, he's finished a 2-minute transition from bum to used car salesman. So, those two descriptions, and you'll notice they were pages apart, by the way. Those two descriptions encapsulate what we're supposed to think of Charlie. And he... I think a lot of the character development in this falls flat. As in, there's not much of an arc. The Charlie, goes from this description of like a used car salesman and everything else. And, to some degree he still is at the end. And that can be okay. That can be okay. It's called a flat arc. That can totally be fine. But he, I don't really know what lesson he learns. The secondary character is Max. Let me see if I can find his intro real quick. Max is his son, who unexpectedly comes into his life, according to my really sloppy logline. All right, let's see here. All right. Here we go. At a large, can you see that? Yes. At a large oak table, we find Max Kenton, an 11-year-old boy. The remnants of a burrito lunch are in evidence as he pulls a small, freshly bought bag of plastic toys from his pocket. Max uses his teeth to open the bag and spills the contents, cheap butterflies of assorted colors. Max picks a dark red butterfly and begins to rub it between his fingers. He seems fascinated with the butterfly as he now rubs it on the table. An older bailiff who's reading the paper in the corner looks up at Max. Max remains intent on weathering the butterfly. So we don't really know what he's doing when he's first introduced. We don't know what kind of kid this is. He's doing this weird thing with toys. And the payoff of that, I'm trying to find. Yeah. So he's talking to his Aunt Helen later here. So Max looks up at Helen with tears in his eyes as he pushes the butterfly towards her. Helen slowly reaches for the butterfly and picks it up. Max quietly explains, "My mom gave me that before she died. She told me she was going to be a butterfly. The caterpillar dies, but the butterfly flies." Helen has never heard something so elegant, so simple. She and Max both well up with tears. So, again, pages later, we have introduced Max. Yeah. It's his character, again, kind of similar. I don't really know where he goes or what he learns. He comes off very exactly like his dad, kind of a huckster, a used car salesman. He's obviously, lying to his aunt, but I don't know if that's ever fixed or how that evolves, to be honest. I don't know that there's anything in particular that he learned. So, character development, I don't see a whole lot, to be honest. There's a lot of sort of push and pull between these two very imperfect characters, throughout the screenplay. And, the way this one ends, that's not doing what I want it to do. Let's skip to the end here. The way it ends, they're together. They have a great time in this final fight. I don't know, if you've ever seen the movie, that part hasn't changed. They have this great time in this final fight. And, Charlie in this final scene even takes some money. So he's, basically takes a bribe, to take Max for the summer. Well, he kind of blackmails the rich family to take his son, so he can have his son for the summer, mostly for money, not because he actually wants his son. And again, these people are not good people, and totally okay. It's okay to have a flawed character. But here in the end, he even takes the money. He takes the remaining money because he's paid half up front and half at the end of the summer. And he still takes the money. And he's about to leave. I guess the good thing he does is make sure that Max goes with his aunt and uncle like he's supposed to. He's gonna leave Max alone and whatever. And then Max shows up and says, "Hey, nope, I want to be with you." Said, "Kid, your aunt would happily have me arrested. She knows I'm here. She gave me all the paperwork for you and the number of some lady to call in Texas to make it all legal." I'm like, what? What happened? I told them I'd burn their house down. Actually, I told them I'd burn all their houses down because they have multiple houses because they're rich. And they believed you? I wasn't kidding. And I'm like, okay, so that's where we're at with these characters. Interesting. So, not big on the character development. Pacing and structure. So this was the first script that I had a lot of trouble with, just getting through it. So, I have avoided reading scripts for a long time. And I meant to do this at the very top of the stream. Few ground rules. 1, I try not to discuss the movie. I eventually will. I always do. But I try not to discuss the movie. This is purely about the writing. It's about the writing of the script. It's about how we write scripts. It is not about how you make a movie. So, ground rule there. But what was the rule that I was going to... I skipped to another rule, and then I didn't mention what I was going to mention. Yep, already forgot. So, anyway, pacing and structure. Oh, there it is. Other rule is writers, screenwriters, need to be reading. That's a general rule. If you read anything that any writer says, it's really important to keep reading, right? Most people would think, oh, you've got novelists who do their thing. And then, sorry, I just noticed the chat. Yes, it does sound a little like Logan. He even chews on a cigar, so that was interesting. And I don't know about psychotic. Psychotic's pretty, a stronger word than I would choose, but they're not great. No. Screenwriters should be reading. What do you read? You read scripts. That's how this works. If you're not reading scripts, likely you're fumbling more than you need to. I'll put it that way. Some people can do this. Some people, they just have, they're like, I watch movies. I'm good enough. Yes, you get a wonderful sense of story. You get a wonderful sense of pace and character and themes and all this other stuff innately from watching movies. But you should also be reading scripts, because there's a format, and I'm not talking literal format. I'm just talking, how do you get your story on the page as a writer? You're not a director. You're not going to shoot it. You're not going to do everything that they do for a film. You are trying to write something down, and unless you're reading scripts, you're not going to know how that's done. Okay, so ground rules done. So along those lines, if I have trouble reading a script, that is a major red flag to me. If I'm bored, if I want to put it down, which I did a couple of times, then yeah, it's not great. And so that goes back to pacing and structure for me. The catalyst is fairly clear. Just zoom all the way back to the beginning. Let's see here. The catalyst is fairly clear. So this is a 124, 23, some 2-hour page or 2-hour movie. So which means we're probably going to find the catalyst somewhere around like 12 to 15. Let's see where we go here. Okay. I mean, the catalyst is basically, Charlie being told that his, not really ex-wife, but like his baby's mama, has died in a car accident, but that his son is still alive, and that his custody rights have reverted back to him. So that's here on page 10 and 11. And I mean, it's a great catalyst, right? Like, you find out that you're suddenly going to have to deal with your son. The way that it was written, and it becomes clear in the court scene later, that this is a theme throughout, and I'm wondering if this is a good place to stick. Yeah, sure. This is a good place to put it. Pacing and structure. That I don't know why the little camera thing does the thumbs up. I hate it. That the way a lot of things are kind of constructed in this story is really roundabout and unnecessarily complicated. So we get this whole backstory of how when Max was born, Charlie gave up his parental rights, and it has to be like explained that that's why Aunt Helen is so mad and doesn't understand what's going on with the judge and everything else. And it's a much longer scene in the screenplay than it is in the movie. Giving the judge such a hard time, because the judge basically has to say, look, actually, it's right here. I scanned right to it. And because of that waiver, we're in uncharted water here. So he waived his parental rights at Max's birth. And he says the father needs to sign a new waiver. And then that's why Charlie walks in and says, I'm here to sign some paperwork that releases my rights to the custody of my son. Like, as much as the catalyst is, I've got to address this on that page 10, 11 or whatever. It's not necessarily going to move the story along, because his immediate decision is like, yeah, I'm just going to do what I did 11 years ago. I'm just going to sign away my rights. Done. That is until he gets a glimpse of how rich Aunt Helen's husband is. Then he has a plan, because it's made very apparent in the setup. Hey, I need money. I'm a loser. I keep losing, and I'm losing a lot of money. So, that part of the structure is intact. But from there, it gets incredibly messy. Like, it's not until the midpoint that we see the robot that's like on the poster. Here, I'm going to do this. Like, look at the poster again. That guy right there, we don't meet him until halfway through the movie in the script. So yeah, it's not great with the structure. The pacing is slow because there's all this extra, all these extra scenes. There's all this extra explanation, and I'll get to this with the visual and sensory details. Again, just the writing of it is not great. So there's a lot of like word fluff as well that really slows the pace down and just doesn't give you any strong feeling ever of where you're at in the story. Right at the end, at like page 90, it finally kind of picks up, and because they finally got the robot at around page 65. And everything before that is kind of he and Max dealing with each other, but not dealing with each other, not liking each other. And the latter half of the script is a little more interesting because they finally have Adam, the robot, and they're kind of now on their adventure in a bigger way. But there are definitely scenes that slow it down that don't need to be there. When they're discovering the robot, there's a long sequence. Let me see if I can find it. Page 65. See, there's so much. And it can all be cut. There's so much. Cut. So, let's see. Paid per round. So, they've found Adam by that point. By 65. There we go. So, we've got Max getting into big trouble at this robot graveyard that he and Charlie go to. He falls down, not literally falls down a cliff, but like kind of falls off a cliff, and a robot arm saves him. And so he decides that he wants to unearth this robot. And right after that, Charlie basically is not going to help him. So Charlie's not around. So there's this entire sequence, all of this right here. You see a metal robot dog with jagged teeth in bold. That's the whole sequence. So there's an entire sequence of Max running from these robot dogs half the night, and trying not to get killed by them because they're described in a very terrifying way, and can get him and everything else. I mean, it's all this. Like, I say all this. It's like 2 pages, but when you're reading that much action represents like a 5-minute sequence or something like that. Don't need it whatsoever. So there was a lot of, that's an example of pacing and structure. Not great. A lot of fluff, not strong in knowing at any given moment, oh, now we're at the midpoint. Oh, now we're, turning into act 2 in a clear way. It was very squishy. The whole thing was very squishy. So that's what I would say about pacing and structure. It was very squishy. It was not strong. Dialogue. That's the next category. Again, there were little snippets of, what might be considered strong dialogue. I could tell because they were the ones that made it into the movie. So, I'm trying to get back to the beginning again. Let's see. I mean, yeah, again, just kind of mid. I don't have a lot to say about the dialogue. It didn't turn me off, but it didn't have any zing to it either. And normally one of the things that I look for with dialogue is, does every character have their own voice? As far as the vocabulary they use, the sentence structure, their voice, can we tell about their character? And, again, they weren't all the same, but I don't really think that they were always that different either. Charlie does seem to have kind of a, I don't know what to call it. Not like a low level vocabulary or anything like that. Just like speaking on a much more like street level. And again, not because he's not smart or any whatever. It's just, he's used to talking on the streets, and that may come across. But like there's a character that shows up in bits and pieces, more so in the beginning, that again is kind of a throwaway character, where he and Charlie kind of sound the same because they have similar backgrounds. It's the owner of the gym where Charlie's like storing his robots and it comes back to after fights and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't. It's good. It's not great. It's mid, kind of like the rest of the script. It could definitely be improved. Like sometimes Max, it slips, and sometimes Max doesn't really sound like a kid anymore. But I think it'd be nice to hear him more as a kid, and Charlie, it'd be nice for him to have a more distinct voice. So, yeah, kind of mid on the dialogue. Nothing crazy memorable at all. Best lines made it to the movie. Yay. Visual and sensory details. So something I noticed right away that made me not want to read this anymore. And sometimes let me preface with this. There are scripts that I have a really hard time with. There have been nominated for Oscars. Okay. One of them being, Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity. I hate that script. I shouldn't say that. I didn't read much of it because I stopped. It was written very, mechanically. It had a lot of direction in it because it was written by Alfonso Cuarón and it was written for his direction. And some people do that. I've mentioned Edgar Wright before too. I think he does a better job. If he had to pass along one of his scripts to another director, I don't think it would feel overly directed. But yeah, there's definitely scripts that I just don't jive with. This one, we crest a rocky mountain range to see a winding highway that cuts across lonely desertscape. There's nothing for miles. We travel closer to the ground to find a lone beat-up box truck that whistles along the abandoned highway. We pull inside the cab to find the driver, Charlie Kenton. He's unshaven with sun-beaten skin and a worn posture as he chews on a cheap cigar and gulps an energy drink from a can. The cab is littered with junk food wrappers and energy drink bottles. The radio plays Simon and Garfunkel's The Boxer as he struggles to stay awake. Charlie puts his cigar in his overflowing ashtray as he strains to see something in the distance. Through the windshield, we see San Leandro County Fairgrounds, Texas. At the far end of the desolate horizon, we can see neon spinning and white light flashing as a Ferris wheel and other rides at a small fair turn on in the dark night sky. We watch Charlie's box truck zoom across the empty desert towards the fairgrounds. Charlie's truck trolls through the exhibitor's gate, and we follow it down a sparsely populated dirt road on the midway. The attractions are tired as are the folks who sleepwalk with cotton candy and beer in hand. The truck passes merry-go-rounds and tilt-a-whirls as it heads towards a large white tent. I have not hit a thing that I'm trying to point out. This is fun. Charlie's truck is tightly packed. Let me just find something. Hold on. What I can say about the stuff I've read so far is it's too poetic. It's too poetic for this. If you read the beginning of Braveheart, it is also poetic. But Braveheart is poetry. Like, it's warrior poetry. And even it doesn't get... It doesn't have as many adjectives and things. So, I've mentioned before, screenplays, super stripped down. They're not novels. We don't need a lot of the adjectives. We need nouns and verbs. We need to know what's happening. And that better pertain to the story. Because even if you put nouns and verbs in there, and they don't pertain to the story, it's bad writing. So, not a huge fan of poetic writing. But then... Oh, let me find this. It bothered me. And it was like a bunch in a row. Oh, this is going to bother me that I can't find this. This is why I need to figure out how to like highlight and do stuff. Let's see. I need to find an example of this because it's a very specific thing. Okay. Here's one example, finally. Okay, so Charlie walks to Supernova and pulls a control pad from a shelf. The pad is a sophisticated remote control. Charlie quickly punches a sequence into the pad like a teenager texting her friends. Let's see. Okay, we probably have a pretty decent scene before we do another one of those. There was a ton of like this and like that, and it was these half sentence, comparisons. Candy smiles, liking all the male bravado floating around. There was also a lot of telling me how characters feel, and sometimes that's okay. That's been again, I make caveats to everything because there's no one right way, but there's definitely a wrong way. And what that means is if it's not contributing to the story, if it's not contributing to the reader experience, if it's slowing me down trying to read the story, it's not good. Let's see. The crowd is cheering. They're tightly packed into small grandstands, giving a tense, violent energy to the fight. Let's see. And I have to scan a bunch. And I'm not a big fan of we language. Again, not a hard, fast rule. But someone mentioned that like over a decade ago to me that it was just kind of a no-no in his circles where it's like, we do this, we do that in a script. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan either. I just noticed once you took them out, you could have the same thing. We watch as Zeus comes flying out of his cage why don't you just write Zeus comes flying out of his cage? Why am I reading we watch as? I don't care. It softens that moment. Let's see. The crowd cheers in disappointment as it looked like we were going to get instant violence. I don't really know. I don't need to know as we were going to get instant violence. I'm trying to find more of those like moments. There were whole paragraphs, and again, I'm not finding this right now, but Charlie's shocked as he sees his robot trying to maneuver on one leg. He's furiously trying to work the remote as he runs towards the fence. Just again, writing wise, it's, Charlie is shocked as he sees his robot, trying to maneuver on one leg. Charlie, shocked, watches his robot maneuver on one leg as he furiously tries to work the remote. Then ditches it and runs towards the fence or something to that effect. There was so much of the script that just did not read concisely enough. So when you talk visual and sensory details, everything was just numb and flat because, well, not everything, but a lot of it was because there was too many words. I couldn't feel the impact of anything. It was kind of like the structure. I couldn't feel the impact of it because there was just so much fluff, happening. And those like this and like that, I swear there is a section of this where it was like every single paragraph you had a like this and a like that with these similes that it was driving me crazy. And this doesn't fit into any of this, and I'm not sure that this was a great structure to follow completely. The world building is also a little messy in this. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the robots. I'm not sure what the rules are. There's enough. They fight in these kind of clear cages so that things don't fly out into the crowd. Interesting, but impractical. They have a robot ref. Also kind of impractical. Don't robots follow rules? And the people who are not following the rules would be the people controlling them, not the robots in the ring. The outlawing of human boxing is barely mentioned in passing. We don't really understand the weight of that. We don't really understand why that happened. And yeah, I found the world building kind of lacks. It's one of the better points in the script because Max is so interested in bot fighting. So you do have a lot of details coming in because there's a character who's literally very into this. But I mean, overall, I never felt like I felt like the rules could change kind of at any moment to suit it. I'm not saying they did, but they were that squishy that I never felt like I really knew and could use that to predict. So one of the big things, both about, that kind of encapsulates all this, and I can just move on to kind of my overall final opinion, is when you have something that is really, really good, you're predicting where it's going to go. You're predicting what decisions your characters are going to make and how the plot's going to push back, how the world is going to push back on them. And in this, it was so squishy. I never, aside from just being self-serving for both of them, both Charlie and Max, I never really knew enough to predict where the story might go, which is a lot of the enjoyment of an audience watching something or reading a story, just storytelling. They're leaning in because they're waiting to hear the next thing that's happening. It's compelling, right? And stories are compelled from the inside and from the outside, meaning you've got characters who are making decisions based on how the plot is pushing them back. And that compels the movie forward, right? It pulls it forward. It pushes it forward because that their decisions are providing the momentum. And what I mean by outside is that audience component. Again, the anticipation that the audience is feeling whenever they're watching the film and they're predicting, okay, where's this going to go next? Where's this going to go next? And they think they know. And it's not just where, it's not just a question. It's them, it's them having enough information to make an educated guess and either not be far off and go, aha, or have it be a really good guess. And you were such a good writer that you kind of went over here to something that made complete sense, but the audience didn't see coming. That's the sweet spot right there, right? They get that really good guess going, and then you kind of zip on them at the last minute, and you go, oh, that's even better. Oh my gosh, right? So when you don't have something that has that internal momentum, it has very few choices. We talked about character development. It has very few choices that really matter, that really hit. I should have used a lot more boxing puns. But they don't really hit, and you don't feel enough of the structure and the momentum and the world to tell you what the plot might do to the characters. So you can't really guess about the characters, you can't really guess about the plot, and you're just waiting to see where it's going to go next. That's not good, because I'm bored. If I can't guess and I'm just having to read, there's no momentum. I'm not compelled, much less, the story inside the script. I was shocked at how not good the script was. And I feel kind of bad because, I don't know these people. I don't know these three writers that worked on this. I'm not insulting them. I have no idea what their other work is. Although John Gatton's sounds really familiar. I'm going to look him up real quick. Let's see here. I don't know them. I don't know their work. So this is not about them. It's much more about this particular script. For real. Let's see what else John Gatton wrote. All credits. Not a fan of the new IMDb layout. New meaning like years. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let's see here. So he had previously written Summer Catch, Hardball, Coach Carter, and Dreamer. These were not hits. They weren't bad. They were produced. They were produced with good people, but they were not hits. Then he wrote Real Steel. Then he wrote Flight with Denzel Washington. Need for Speed. I don't remember that one. Okay, maybe I know this. He wrote the story for Kong Skull Island. I really enjoyed that movie. And then he wrote he has a screenplay credit on Power Rangers, the newer Power Rangers. I want to know who else wrote the Power Rangers script. I do this all the time. Rabbit hole. It happens. 2 other writers on that particular script. So, anyway, this is not a dig on them, on these lovely guys who wrote this, but, yeah, I was shocked. So this is the part where I'm going to talk about the movie. All right. I'm not doing terrible on time. I started late. I'm going to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes. Time me. So, the movie connections, some differences. Okay. A lot of that fluff I'm talking about was gone. There was a lot more inserted to make Charlie's character have an actual arc. He isn't just kind of scumbag, ends as kind of scumbag, and has this adventure in the middle. He very much has this entire arc of, being the guy that would take money to, or, basically blackmailed for money to take this kid and blah, blah, blah. And he ends up, realizing that he's been a crap dad, that he kind of wants to be a dad. And you kind of end trying to figure out what that's going to look like. So, and Max he is not even remotely a con artist. He's actually like the level-headed one and the one that's better with the decisions and the money. Like, Charlie's known for really bad decision making, in the movie. So they massaged that. There's 2 characters in the screenplay that are not in the movie that were obviously combined. So there is the guy that owns the gym that I mentioned. His name is Brandon. He owns the gym. He gives Charlie crap because Charlie owes him money and blah, blah, blah. And there is a girl who is seen with a lot of the bot fighter people that Charlie runs into early in the script, who he ends up dating for like half the screenplay. And it's kind of implied that she was, not spying on them, but anyway, kind of helped track them down for one of those people that was looking for him. So those 2 characters were combined into the character that Evangeline Lilly played. So she is the owner of the gym. She's his touch point throughout. He calls her for advice. He runs back to that gym at one point when they're at the low point in the movie. So the movie has a much stronger structure than the screenplay, which is saying something if you've seen the movie, because again, it's a little squishy. It's a little basic. And so she serves that purpose. And honestly, I love that her character way better than the 2 characters in the screenplay. They, again, just kind of feel like bottom dwellers. And I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting to throw, her name is Candy, into the mix, when it comes to Charlie and Max's relationship. But honestly, she doesn't do anything for it and she doesn't serve any purpose. So yeah, moving from this script into the film is actually a much better version, but it is still incredibly messy. I don't know if I keep going back to messy. It's still very much not strong. It's weak. And it's weakened by its lack of cohesive theme. So I was announcing this on LinkedIn and everything earlier today, and someone pointed out that this is actually based on a Twilight Zone episode. I'm a big fan of Twilight Zone. There's a lot of Twilight Zone episodes, so I had no idea. And he pointed out, I looked it up, sure enough, episode called Steel from Twilight Zone, and it's set in a world where human boxing has been outlawed. Sound familiar? You've got bot fighting, and these 2 guys have this old bot, and they're trying to make something happen with it. One of these guys is an ex-boxer, and he just can't let go. He's like, no, but he can't, because the bot's really old too. And they're like, no, he can't fight anymore. And they're like, yeah, he can. And anyway, I wikied it, so I don't want to like go on with the plot because I may not have understood it properly. But the point being, the theme of the original was, from the sound of it, was this: I don't want to let go. I don't want to move on kind of thing. Not at all what's written in the script, and not at all what made it to the movie. And that's a problem. So what ends up happening, I'm just going to use the movie instead of the screenplay. What you end up having is you have a story about a father and a son. So that's one of your universal themes. You've got a story about not wanting to let go, or rather, it's not wanting to let go, and at the same time, not really believing in yourself. Because that's the Charlie character. He's an ex-boxer. He doesn't really want to let go. But he also doesn't believe in himself because he's kind of a loser and he keeps making really bad decisions. And then you have this kind of love story thrown into that as like a side supporting commentary. Especially to his past as a boxer, because she has known him since he was, young and all this stuff. And her dad, they made up this whole, again, the Evangeline Lilly character is completely new. There's a lot in the movie that is not in the screenplay. And it's used to support Charlie's character, which is good. But, there was no cohesive theme. We talked about with Rocky and the character development that there was a theme. It was overcoming, right? It was overcoming the odds. It was, can you overcome the odds? And every single character in every single moment, whether it was plot, character arc, whatever, supported that theme. It spoke to that theme. There was always a barrier for everyone to overcome and approach and everything else. And you have Rocky, Mickey comes along and is like, this could be my only shot and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't about him being old and wanting to, he blatantly mentions his age, but it's not about that. It's about, there's always been this barrier, can we overcome? Can we push through? I think he mentions his age because we're meant to think, I'm 76. Can I overcome it even this late in life? Like it had a certain context to it. This doesn't have any of that. Like there's no reference, no feeling of what these characters are doing. It's weak and messy in that regard. You never really know what any one scene is going to be about, and that follows through into the movie. So I have no idea who did the final cleanup. I know that Sean Levy directed the movie. I really hope to work with him one day because I think that would be really cool. I think he's fun. And I think he tried, if it was him, may not have been him, but I think he probably tried to make the best out of this, to make it fun, to make it, more cohesive than the script. And like I said, it is, but not by much, because instead of just picking a theme and stripping it down, it's still all over the place. You've still got Charlie literally trying to overcome his past, and they made it much bigger by bringing in Evangeline Lilly and her connection. So instead of minimizing that, they made it bigger. Then the whole story is very obviously about a father and a son, but not all the moments really speak to that. And then you bring in the robot that feels very Rocky underdog, like Rocky's story. And it's like, oh, can these guys overcome the odds, right? And because they, again, have made bad decisions, and can they overcome? There's themes of abandonment because of Max and Charlie, and that's part of their relationship. I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you. I can name like 10 things it's about, but that's not good. And so ultimately, even the movie is weakened. It's weakened by a lack of clear theme and motivation for every scene to point back to and go, we're talking about this. Remember, we're talking about that. Hey, these characters, they're all striving for that one thing. We're talking about this one thing in this one movie. You can explore all kinds of themes. Well, that's not even true. I was about to say you can explore all kinds of themes when you're talking about TV. Even in TV, you have a push and pull of a theme. Every single episode will speak to it. It's crazy. So there you go. I read something that was not great, and it turned out to be even worse in the script, in script form. It was all over the place. It makes me feel good as a writer, because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking this is not that far off from what I write. Not that I intentionally write weak stuff, but I'm just saying, like, it's like some of my drafts, that I know are not done, that I know are not, the pinnacle of screenwriting. But someone was interested in the story. Someone got interested and tried to make something of it. So that's encouraging. If you're out there and you were writing a script and you think, ugh, I can never live up to the standards because all you're doing is reading absolutely magnificent scripts. Hopefully reading magnificent scripts is actually pushing you to just be better and I want to see, you pick up what they do and use it in what you do. I think that's amazing. But if it's discouraging you, read some bad scripts. Understand that these produced scripts are sometimes equal to your own work, because I just read through a friend of mine's script that made it to second round Austin Film Festival, and I'm interested in producing it and everything else. So I was rereading it because I know it needs rewrites. It's at that place. I know it needs rewrites, but it reads better than this did. Like, as a reader, as a story, it suffers from a similar messiness. It needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be tightened. And that's what I talked about so much with, like, Home Alone, the editing that needed to happen with the Home Alone script. It did. It happened. It either happened in the script or it happened in the editing room. Either way, it happened. Rocky was an incredibly tight script, and even it morphed and changed because you had people who understood the characters, because the script helped you understand the characters and it helped you understand the themes. They were incredibly clear. My friend's script, this script, that's kind of where they're at. They're, I can sit here and say that this version is bad. But my friend's script, it's good. It just needs work. Same for this one. It's interesting. There's interesting things. There's a lot of potential. They lifted a lot of scenes from this, rearranged them, and made it stronger. But to realize that people could write this and sell it and make money revising it and do all that kind of stuff, hopefully it's encouraging. It's encouraging to me to realize, it's just about not luck, but timing, and whether or not someone's interested in supporting and telling that story. So let this be an encouragement to you. Keep writing, right those wrongs, and keep writing and keep learning and keep growing and keep making your scripts better. So that's Real Steel. That's all I've got for now, for tonight. And I kept it kind of shorter, and I hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to read the script yourself. I probably discouraged you from doing that, but please go read the script yourself. It's linked on my LinkedIn, and I'll also put a link in the comments for YouTube when I repost this to YouTube. And I have no idea what we're covering next. I wish I could announce that at the end of the episodes every time, but I'm usually kind of feeling it out as I go. And I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next week. So, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you next time.